Go back to the building off Causeway Street in the hub that is Boston. We're joined by Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A., our colleague Brian Windhorst just tweeted out, he said, Boston is young, but they play old. Philly is young, and they play young. And we saw that in a couple of games down the stretch where Boston was just a better team with the basketball. And that was, again, the case here tonight in the last 2 minutes.
There's no question that was the case here tonight. There were a couple of critical turnovers, mismanagement of the possessions that they've had, particularly in the last 2 minutes or so. Plus, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubts with calls. You're Joel Embiid, you're Ben Simmons, you're Saric, and these guys, they are relatively young. They're not that seasoned. So when you put yourself in positions where you're looking for help from the referees, you're simply not going to get it. Sometimes you're going to get those calls. Sometimes they're going to let you just go out and play. That play with Joel Embiid on the baseline near the end of the game, I didn't blame the referees at all. I thought it was a fantastic no call. You're in crunch time. You got an opportunity to tie the game. You got to go up strong, and you got to finish. You're 7'2", 260 pounds. You have got to finish at the basket. It's just that simple. He didn't do it, even though he had a great game and he was dominant in the second half. Boston made the plays when they had to. The Philadelphia 76ers did enough to climb back after giving up a 10-0 run. They came back with a 10-0 run of their own. It still ended up not being enough because in the end, when you needed a seasoned point guard to really handle the realms and keep everything under control, they had to rely on a first-year player in Ben Simmons, and that certainly wasn't going to be enough against this Boston Celtics team. It's just that simple to me.
Stephen A., let me ask you something. I'm going off script here, going to your memory. I remember a famous play the Knicks were involved in. It might have been in the finals against the Rockets. Charles Smith had a chance at the hoop, and he was forever remembered, I believe, for not going strong and not slamming that basketball. Do you remember the play?
Hold on.
Was it Charles Smith?
No. Yeah, that wasn't against the Rockets. That was against Michael Jordan and the Bulls with Jordan and Pippen.
Okay, but that was Smith.
And Horace Grant and those guys. That was Charles Smith with the Knicks at that time. So he still hasn't been forgiven for that, by the way.
Exactly. So there's the big body that I'm talking about. Is this something Embiid might not be remembered for? He could have gone up strong there and slammed that basketball, too.
Yeah. He could have gone up stronger, no doubt. But in the case of Charles Smith, who's an incredibly nice guy, he missed about 5 or 6 attempts at the basket. In Embiid's case, it was really just one. So that's how you have to look at it. Those kind of things happen. The kind of stuff that happened to Charles Smith years ago against the Chicago Bulls. Oh, no, that doesn't happen very often. That's why you still see video of that.
All right. How about some love for me remembering even Charles Smith, huh? Any points for that?
Excuse me?
Any points for me remembering the play, at least? Since I got the opponent wrong?
That's right.
Charles Smith.
Well, you got the opponent wrong, but you remember the player and the play, so you do get a couple of points.
And what he is forever, unfortunately, remembered for. Anyway, let's move on. I think we're going to be talking about Boston, Philadelphia in the East for many years to come, but the people want to get your first take on Cleveland, Boston, starting on Sunday, right where you are. Your thoughts?
Well, whatever you saw from the Philadelphia 76ers, LeBron James is an entirely different animal. He's seasoned. He's poised. He's already been to 8 NBA Finals. He's a 3-time champion. He's lost 5 NBA Finals. So he's not fazed by a berth in the Eastern Conference. That's not going to faze him whatsoever. Now, Boston is long. They're athletic. They're young. They're going to throw a myriad of bodies at him. They're going to try to wear him down. They may even take away his jump shot if they're capable of doing so. But in the end, the size, the girth and mass of LeBron James, along with that ability to perform in the post against the Jason Tatums, against the Jaylen Browns of the world, in my opinion, is going to be too much for these Boston Celtics. It'll be a terrific series. I spoke to Kyrie Irving before the game. Obviously, he's composed and he's fine because he's ultra cool, but he knows the rest of us are very, very depressed that he's not going to be a part of this series because he's injured. Because if he were playing, I would pick the Boston Celtics to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. But because he's not playing, along with the other parts that they have available, which just doesn't have the mass and the girth necessary to deal with a LeBron, particularly if he's getting assistance from Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love on the boards. I just think that LeBron James is going to be entirely too much for the Boston Celtics. It could go 7. I think it'll go 6, but ultimately the king will be crowned in the Eastern Conference yet again once this series is over.
All right, we are awaiting, of course, all the key participants from Game 5 from the Boston-Philadelphia game. We'll take you there to the podium as soon as that happens live here on SportsCenter. Stephen A., is this a ridiculous question to ask you which conference final you are more excited about? Is it obviously the West?
Absolutely. If Kyrie Irving were healthy, then this would be equally as exciting. Kyrie versus LeBron after all that happened last summer, which led to Kyrie's departure from Cleveland to right here in Boston. But Kyrie is not healthy. So it's a very good, young, talented, exceptionally well-coached Boston Celtics team against King James, LeBron James. That's all this series is. The West is an entirely different matter altogether. I can't wait for it. I've been waiting all year. James Harden, CP3 versus Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and the crew. Draymond basically saying we ain't thinking about the Houston Rockets. We're thinking about championships. Houston saying we built this team just to come get y'all. I love it. I can't wait. I'm mad. I got to wait a week. I ain't going to lie to you. I'm mad. I got to wait a week.
So along those lines, Stephen A., quickly here now, this is a good night in the NBA offices, right? They get both great conference finals, but now we got to wait till Sunday. The NBA would prefer to have some action between now and then, right?
The only problem is that Kyrie is not playing. If Kyrie were playing, the picture would be complete. It would be everything we have fantasized about. But this is Kyrie Irving that we're talking about here, who didn't want to play in Cleveland with LeBron any longer. And the first time you're in the postseason with your new team, you're going to go against LeBron James as a nemesis? Oh, my Lord, that would have been a storyline for the ages. We all would have been watching, salivating at the opportunity to watch them two teams go at one another with those two players. But Kyrie's not playing. So because he's not playing, it does take some of the luster off, but it's still LeBron James. So obviously that's Mr. Box Office, and we get something in that regard. No question about that.
Stephen A. talking about it, the great upcoming conference finals. You'll catch some of the action on ESPN in the East. Stephen A., we'll get back to you shortly.